Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salalo Makudir. The time is 3 minutes past 9, and in a bit we'll be speaking to Ralph Berold. He's the country manager of Enphase Energy, and we'll be speaking to, I think, a topic that will be close to a lot of our listeners' hearts, with more and more South Africans now turning to solar power to escape load shedding and rising electricity costs. It seems like a no-brainer. Go solar, save money, and keep the lights on at all times. But now, Eskom is stepping in with new warnings. So register your rooftop solar power system, or you could face fines. That's what Eskom is saying, even if you're not feeding electricity back into the grid. Compliance is apparently mandatory. So we asked the question, what does this mean for homeowners, regular people? How complicated and how costly is the registration process? And is Eskom's approach really about safety and grid stability, or is there more to it? And to help us unpack this, we're joined by Ralph Berold. He's the country manager for Enphase Energy, a company at the forefront of solar and energy storage solutions. Ralph, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with this. Why do you think Eskom is making such a strong push now, and how does it impact everyday South Africans who have already gone solar or are still looking to get off the grid?
Yeah, good morning and salams to your listeners. So it's an interesting time. We've just had a little bit of load shedding after more than 300 days of no load shedding. So we thought we were through the woods, um, and that we were able to have a steady, secure supply of electricity to the homes and businesses. But now, it turns out we're not actually through the woods, and we could expect more load shedding to come this year. So why is Eskom speaking now? I think it's not a new message. I think Eskom for a few years has been very clear, as with the standards in the industry, that we have to make sure that we have safe and compliant solar systems in South Africa, and that's to protect not just the homeowner, but also people that are working on the grid, or even people working on the electricity system in your home, like your service provider, etc. So that's an important message. It's safety is very important.
Mm.
In terms of feeding back into the grid and connections, look, there's a big issue here, which is that Eskom needs to shift its is being forced to shift its business model to allow for some feeding back into the grid, whether that's at a household level if you have an Eskom connection, whether it's a commercial level, even large scale industrial utility. There's more and more solar coming, and it's because it's the cheapest power source actually in the world right now, per unit of power. And that's only going to mean that there's more investment in solar. And once you use the energy on your property, or at your connection, then you might want to also push more energy in to the grid. So that kind of makes sense, because Eskom and the municipalities can get energy at a lower cost even than they can produce themselves. So it's sort of, the economics are in the direction that we should be doing feed into the grid. But Eskom and the municipalities have to change their meters, for example, their billing systems, and allow for access to the grid. So they want to do that in a way that's controlled, where they can measure properly the feed in as well as the consumption. So that's usually a two-way meter. And they have processes they need to follow. And, any reasonable solar installer will know what the processes are that need to be followed in the area that they live.
Mm, mm. I want to touch a bit on the cost factor and the practical implications of this. Reports suggest that some homeowners have been quoted around 27,000 to around 50,000 rands to bring their systems up to Eskom standards. What exactly drives these costs to be so high?
Yeah.
27, 50,000, that's a lot on top of already installing a solar system. It seems a bit steep.
Yeah. Look, I mean, as a lot of people already invested money, I think in 2023 and early 24 when the load shedding was really bad. And in some cases, the equipment that they invested was not compliant with the South African standards. So in that case, it's going to become very expensive. You may need to replace the inverter that you've purchased, right? Or else you need to make sure that that inverter has the capability of preventing back feeding into the grid. So that's called zero export capability. So those things are kind of non-negotiable. In terms of the process, like in Cape Town, the price has actually come down to get a two-way meter and to allow for registration of the systems. It's come down from about 12,000 to about 6,000 for a meter. And if you amortize that over a long period, it's not so bad. But the point is I'm making is that some equipment and some installations were compliant from the get-go, and others not. And if it's not compliant, then you will need to invest more, as I said, to be more safe, and also allow for for the municipality to actually take your energy.
How do you know if your inverter and your panels are all compliant, and whose responsibility is it at the end of the day to make sure that you are registered? Is it the installer or the homeowner, and how does one go about it? Ralph, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, the
Did you?
line
Yeah.
is kind of breaking, but I think I got that. Look, two levels. One is that you need to make sure that when someone does work on your property, that the electrician signs off a certificate of compliance, right? And that is the basic level of safety which is required, and I think it's required for also for your insurance purposes, etc. So certificate of compliance is really non-negotiable for anyone who touches your electricity system. Okay, whether it's a plumber or electrician, etc. So that's very important. Second, the equipment that is installed, and I'm really talking about inverters here because the panels are less material to the issue than the inverters. The inverters are the ones which are the brain of the system, and the inverters, which may or may not have battery, need to be compliant with the grid code, and that you can check that if you just Google the City of Cape Town list, for example, of inverters. It will show you all of the inverters that are compliant with the South African grid code, and I think many of the other municipalities also follow that same list, and that will basically show you exactly which inverters are compliant and which are not. And obviously, there's a lot of different manufacturers on that list.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm. In many countries across the world, Europe mainly, the governments there are almost incentivizing, solar adoption from citizens. Do you think South Africa is doing enough to encourage that shift, the shift to renewable energy, or are policies like this one, slowing down progress and making people a bit reluctant when it comes to going green and going off the grid?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. It's like shifting the entire electricity supply industry because think about the old way in which electricity was sold. It was sold from a central utility through the distribution to the homeowner in a one-way direction, right? And now you're asking the government to shift like the Titanic around of this entire industry. And in other words, the small guy, the consumer, can actually start to produce energy and sell back to the distributor. So I mean, it is a major shift that's happening, and it's very good news that government regulations more generally are going the right direction. From Eskom, from the Electricity Regulation Act, and more, let's say, enabling policies from municipalities. Many municipalities are now encouraging people to put more panels, solar panels, and there's also tax incentives which are in place. So I wouldn't complain that we're not doing enough. I think that it is industry in transition. As I said, we could do more. I mean, it would be nice if the tax incentives were continued for households and also for businesses, because they're set to expire now this year. So there is work to be done. So look, I think more generally, South Africa is in a transition, and
Mm,
we're coming that way. Whether government likes it or not, the economics of the situation are changing towards a cleaner economy, and that's only good news. Um,
mm.
I just wanted to come in again, Salala, on affordability, because you mentioned some figures earlier, right?
Sure.
I think what's going to happen more and more in the next couple of years as electricity prices increase, you're going to see more affordable options coming online for a grid-tied solar. In other words, just solar with no batteries, right? It's assumed that load shedding keeps at a low level or non-existent. You're going to see more and more options available. So, for example, Standard Bank, one of our partners, is offering our products at a system which is under 50,000 Rand installed. And you're going to see, more and more of those kind of products which are affordable for South Africans, and are a good investment for South Africans to make, right? And you don't
Mm,
really need an incentive. Sometimes you need a financial loan from your bank or your home loan, etc. But you're going to see those kind of investments are more affordable, and they will be attractive for people. And they're going to return a good return on investment over like 20 years, 25 years. So I think that's good news. And it's not just the wealthiest households that will be able to afford batteries and solar. Increasingly, that will become more available for middle class homes and
Okay,
adding
thank you.
value to the property. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be much appreciated news, for the middle to lower class, citizens of South Africa. But just in
Yeah.
closing, Ralph, for someone looking to install a solar system today, what advice would you give to ensure that they remain compliant and avoid penalties, in the
Mm,
future, and they just have a system that works generally? Because there's a lot in the market
yeah.
right now when it comes to solar systems. There's a lot of installers. I think you see one every week
Yeah.
now pop out. How does one go about it,
Yeah.
doing it the right way?
Yeah. 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 Well, I would recommend two things. One is to work via your financial institution, that maybe you're taking a home loan, or you have a relationship with your bank, and often the banks are actually quite good at finding the right equipment, and advising the customers on what is the right level of investment to make, which is affordable to them, and maybe they can give you a loan for that, as I said. So, and we're working with Standard Bank and others, and Standard Bank Luxi has a good portal for that. They've got our products, which are Enphase inverters, which are very high quality and a long warranty, 25-year warranty on them. So that's one route. The other route I would suggest, and I always give this recommendation to friends and family, is make sure that you're working with electrician or a plumber that's really a trusted individual that's running a solid business. Perhaps you know them, or they've been around for a long time and they're near to you, so that it's not like a fly by night company. You can discuss with them what they suggest, and they're a
Mhm.
trusted service provider, because sooner or later you're going to need them. You don't want a company where they put something in and then next year they're not around and you can't get hold of them. So find the right local service providers that can look after you long term. um, and those companies exist. There's many of them on the ground. The last thing I would just say, just to throw in one, uh, the immediate thing that people can do, which is a cheap and easy way to save money, is just to put a timer on your geyser.
Mm,
So, for example, you can actually make sure your geyser only heats the water, for some of the day, not right through 24 hours, and that will already reduce your electricity consumption. And we have affordable solar water heating options from Enphase and Energy,
mhm,
and that's one way in which to really save money. So up to 40% of people's bills are spent on water heating for the home. Sometimes, on average, maybe 40%. So that's a lot of money. So, with a bit of solar panels, and the correct technology, and like I said, a timer for the geyser, you can definitely save money on your bill on a daily to week basis, week to week basis.
No, no, definitely. I think we're going to leave on that note, Ralph. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Always appreciate you having you on Salam Media. And I'm sure we'll be chatting in the so distant future.
Thank you.
They have it. That was Ralph Berold, country manager. Oh, all right. I just lost my train of thought there. That was Ralph Berold. He's the country manager of Enphase Energy. And yeah, they're into solar solutions. And yeah, you can look them up. And yeah, it's providing some really, really interesting insights. We have some comments on our screen. This is from YouTube, the Body Clan. Good morning. The majority of South Africans cannot afford alternative energy sources. Electricity is way too overpriced and will cause serious civil unrest. This is from the Body Clan on YouTube. And there's Servicing IQ. I found the best batteries are lead carbon. Yeah, some really interesting comments people are making, but I think we can all agree that at the end of the day, alternative solar, alternative electricity sources are needed. Looking at how Eskom is operating, load shedding has made its way back. There's, electricity prices that are going up again and again. So yeah, I think looking into solar, other alternative energy sources is definitely the right way to go. But you have to do it right. As I mentioned beginning of the interview, and as we unpacked it there with Ralph, Eskom is urging South Africans with rooftop solar systems to register their installations with the utility. So to register with Eskom, even if their systems aren't feeding power back into the grid. So there are people who are feeding back into the Eskom grid, and then there are those that are not. Your solar system is just powering your house, your home, and your property, but Eskom is saying everyone, as long as you have a solar panel system installed, you need to register with them. And this move from Eskom is their efforts to ensure grid safety and compliance with national energy regulations. And homeowners who don't register by March 2026, which is the deadline, March 2026, could face fines of around 6,000 Rand. While Eskom supports the use of solar power, it requires that systems meet safety standards. There's a grace period for registration, but homeowners must act as soon as possible to avoid penalties and additional costs. And you can go over to the Eskom website to make sure that you get all the information you need on that front. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.